All right, good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world, and happy Friday. I'm excited to begin this chapter in this journey. This is going to be a series I'm calling "Built from Nothing," which is really starting because I want to redefine the sales industry, and for a few reasons, which I want to get into. But let me raise the desk a little bit. Yeah, so what really started it for me, because, well, first off, if you're new to the channel, my name's Adam. I own a fractional sales company called Paid in Full, where we build and release sales infrastructures into companies. And a few things that I really am passionate about is one is sales, but two, seeing people treated appropriately for how they do their jobs, and people being rewarded for their hard work. Um, and the treatment of people goes a long way. Like, treat people the way you want to be treated, and that comes from the top down as the CEO. So for me, in my background, I have experience in the hospitality industry and the real estate industry, and then transitioned into the high ticket sales space. And in all three areas, the common denominator was whoever was on top, no one cared about the quality of life, the living, or the situation of the employee. And what they were doing to actually make a difference, or what they were actually doing to do the job that they were hired to do. And that's always been a common experience. Now, even more so while being a part of the sales industry. And I've seen some really, really hard things, and I've experienced them firsthand. The belittlement and distreatment of reps from the CEO and from owners. Like, from my own experience, one offer that I was a part of for a long time, I personally was belittled, put down, screwed over four times by the same person. And every time I never learned. Every time I was asked for an opportunity to go back, I thought, okay, maybe things will be different. Maybe things will get better. But no, it was the same thing, if not worse. And because of that, over the last 6 months to a year, I've gone broke four times, five times, and now I'm at a point where it's like, okay, I can't deal with that anymore. I'm going to do it differently. And that's why I started my own company, because it doesn't come down to the performance of the individual. There's a difference between someone that's performing and is incapable of getting a result, or is not does not have the skill set yet to get the specific result you want, versus someone who's doing everything they can and the result is not happening. There's a difference. But either way, they need to be treated appropriately in the way that they deserve. Which is why I firmly believe, and I preach this to a lot of people that I speak to, is that mediocre salespeople with great systems will always outperform great salespeople with really shitty systems. And that's something that's really important. It doesn't matter if you have the best of the best closer. What happens if they're unable to show up for work? What happens if they're unable to do their job? Okay, well, you lost your best, and then the company's going to fall. So it shouldn't be the rep or the individual that truly is the deciding factor of whether the company succeeds or not. It should be the systems that you put in place that ultimately shape your future, because you're more than just one rep. But at the end of the day, we're we're not here to just rely on one person. So, long story short, that's why I started my company called Paid in Full. And my mission is to redefine the sales space through, I'll call it, systematic empowerment, creating a new standard of leadership, culture, execution, one business at a time. So I appreciate you coming along for that journey, and being here today to watch that happen. So with that, I kind of want to I'll get into some topics that I wanted to discuss, which is ultimately why your sales systems is so bad. But as the owner, your sales systems are so bad. But also, we can get into trainings as to how we can prepare reps. Um, to shape their future and to live a better quality life, also to be prepared for the industry you're getting into. So I'll break out the whiteboard for us. So I would say there's a few reasons why most systems are set up this way. It comes down to how it was laid out in the beginning, the foundation that was put into place when the company was, just getting started, as well as where things went over time. And I'll kind of explain it briefly. Like, this is how most, I'll say 90% of sales teams have their operations set up. So you have your lead up here. They're going to enter your funnel right here, and they enter something what I call the swimming pool of death. Now this is your lead bucket. This is where most sales reps end up having to search for their leads. Maybe you have some smart views involved. You could have new leads, you could have old leads, no shows, cancels, closed, etc. But at the end of the day, your setters are just going to be recycling through this list every single day. Every single day. And what does that do? That doesn't show anything. What does that do? You're just calling over and over and over again the same leads. You have no idea who's engaging with content, who's opening emails, who's clicking links, who's going to websites, who's downloading lead magnets, because those leads are important and they should be at the very top of the bucket. But you don't know because your system's not involved. That, therefore, as things happen, and yeah, maybe you have a lead that goes through, ends up with the closers, and is able to close a deal. But at the end of the day, they're doing their job. Say their KPI is 150 dials. Yeah, they may be doing the job. Maybe they're cycling through. But so what? They're cycling through. Maybe they're hitting their numbers, but appointments are getting booked. Why? Because we're just calling the same leads over and over and over, only getting appointments out of the new leads that are coming in at the top. These are the only leads that are actually making some sort of progress because they're hot, they're fresh, and you're only able to capitalize on those because all of these are not doing anything. So there's a few things we can do with that. But also, when the centers are doing their job, they're calling the leads, but no appointments are getting booked. What happens to the CEO? He gets pissed. And that's where the belittlement and screaming at the sales team comes in, because this is typically what happens. Most people will blame the leads. That happens a lot. Every rep loves to blame the leads. Oh, they're not calling. We're calling. Oh, they're not picking up. Oh, they're not answering the phone. And that's where the owners will always go, oh, do more. Well, you're not doing enough. You suck. Screaming at the roof of their mouth, where's the money? Which is, again, poor leadership and poor on them for talking to you that way. So they're not the problem. You as the owner is the problem because you don't have good systems. This is not a system. This is a CRM with you basically have a rain bucket. that's leaking. And you can call this leaking dollars. Over and over and over again, because in the bucket of death, leads that maybe were hot weren't hit enough. Leads that are in the bucket weren't followed up with enough. Leads that were in the bucket weren't nurtured enough. So, number one, you as the owner is the problem. Two, you cannot blame your sales team. You can never blame your sales team. There's a difference between them doing their job, hitting the mark, and hitting KPI, and there not being a result, versus a sales rep that's underperforming, not hitting their KPI. There's a difference. So if we're looking at our lead flow and our process, you have your entry point. Now from here, that's where everything goes to shit. Always, because leads are just going to be pouring out the sides, because we're just calling through hoping for shit to happen. Well, you're not educating your prospects. You have no you have no systems involved after they've entered the funnel. Nothing. And this is how 90% of sales teams are set up. Lead enters the funnel, enters the bucket, setters call the bucket, hoping to send things to closers. And even worse, the backside. The lead no-shows ends up back in this list. All right, well, what happens to that lead? They were very high intent, enough to have a conversation with a setter on a discovery call, to book a call with the closer, but then not show up to the appointment. Again, dial through. That dialing only does so much. You have to do more than that to actually get someone. So even worse, after this, say closer makes a deal, sends the lead to a client success team if there is any. All right, what happens there? And if you don't have this is the fulfillment side of the funnel, because you have to take care of the front end and the back end. This is where your prospects get results. This is where you take care of the people that are buying. And if you're the type of owner that only gives a shit about making money, then your process stops here, because you don't care if they get results. And that's another really big thing that's in the sales space, is all these owners, all they give a shit about is making money. Like, that's not why we're doing what we're doing. Yeah, it's cool to make a great living off of what you do, but if you throw out to the world, yeah, I want to change lives, cool. Well, change their lives. Don't talk shit and slander and belittle them behind their back just to get $1. That's why those companies will go under. And that's why those things will never change. This is a broken system. Now I want to show you a real system. This is where leads can actually fall into a proper pipeline and a proper bucket. And I'll show you. Let me log into my account for you, and I'll show you what I'm referring to. Here we go. So this is a real system. This is something that I call the setter engine. This is something that I took from my mentor. Most of the time, you're, as I've explained behind me, you're missing 90% of this. And I'll briefly walk you through it. So if we were to relate this over to what I was explaining behind me, leads enter here. Data entry is where your leads enter the system. From here, most of the time, your leads go here, which is just speed the lead expectation by the setting team. And then from there, it's objective met. Actually, you know what? I'll redo this with you guys. I want to show you a before and after because this is important. So I'm basically going to rebuild exactly what was behind me. Okay. So this would be my explanation of this. Actually. We'll call this the typical sales funnel, which is basically what I was explaining behind me. So most leads would enter here, which is your entry point. They would end up in the supposed bucket of death, we'll call it. Oops. This is I'll say your main folder, your bucket of death, where all leads go to die. Now, typical expectation, speed the lead. Okay, we expect you to call all the new leads as quick as possible. Okay, cool. Call through, call through, call through. And what happens? Leads just start to fall through the pipeline. Now, this is where you end up with what we call a drop-off point. Because leads are not being followed up with enough, you're ending up losing them. They're so unengaged, or you have no idea who's engaged, or you're being lost in the bucket. And if you're a sales company that has 4,000 or 5,000 plus leads, or getting multiple hundreds of thousands of leads a month, that's going to be quite expensive. So this is why this system is broken. You can't expect this to function properly. Speed to lead translates to objective met, which would be whatever your sales process is, whether that's book on a discovery call, book on a closing call, and then your pass off point is going to be handing the lead off to a closer. This is the old system. There's so much dysfunction in this, and that's why this is a broken system, which is why we install things called engines. Now, I'll briefly explain it to you. This is just one portion of that process. But this is why you need prolific systems. Prolific systems with moderate salespeople will outperform great salespeople anytime, any day of the week with poor systems. So let me explain this to you. So this is something we call our setter engine in its basic shape. So this is where we kick off the process. Data entry goes in right here. Lead delegation here, which means leads enter the pipeline. They're then assigned to a rep based on activity, whether you have an A team or a B team, which is really important to understand depending on the size of your sales team. And then same thing occurs, speed to lead. We expect you to reach out to a lead within a certain time frame. If you are not, then you are going back through this cycle. You'll get a message in Slack that the lead has been that so-and-so lost the lead because they did not follow up, contact them in time, and it was redelegated to another lead. That's how this becomes a great system. So that's how you prioritize hot leads at the front. Delegated to the rep based on activity and performance of the rep from A team or B team. And then if that lead is not contacted in a certain time frame, then it's redelegated to another group. Now, from speed to lead, say the lead is contacted, this is where your outbound system and lead prioritization and management system kicks in. This is where you have leads in specific folders, not the shitty folders that we're talking about here that are attached to the pool of death. There is no pool of death in this system that's in front of me. So lead prioritizing and lead management would be you set up, I'll say 3 folders minimum. Your P1, P2, P3, this is going to be hot, warm, cold. And the system on the back end is working for you. It's going to be taking the leads that have engaged the most with your content because we've set up a system and a flow and an engine that is supposed to identify those triggers. Lead scoring,